and welcome to the Matt Murphy Show. I am your host, Jennifer Sheets, and I am filling in today. And if you're wanting to listen to Matt Murphy, you will hear him from 3 to 7 as he's filling in for Brian Wilson. I appreciated Chris giving me a little bit of a send-off handover when I first came in. I host the show on the weekends on Sundays from 11 to 12 called Master the Workforce. And this is my first time having an opportunity to fill in during the week for 3 hours. So I'm excited and I'm nervous. So bear with me, everybody. But I come with some, I hope, good opinions, and I want to hear from you all. I want to hear what you have to say about some of these hot topics that are out there. And so glad that Belle is in the booth back there with me. How are you, Belle?
I'm going to go grab lunch. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Okay, then that would make some really interesting radio, right? Just see me trying to push some buttons, everybody thinking what happened.
Well, I got your back.
I appreciate that so much, and I love the fact that we were talking just before we segued out about social media a little bit, and I got to tell you that anybody that's out there knows that this has just become a hot button. I have an 18-year-old that's graduating high school this year, and I have a 14-year-old, and my daughter that's 14. This has been the thing that's been driving me crazy. So, like, Belle, this is what happens. We go to dinner or out to eat somewhere with a group of the kids, and instead of talking to one another, they're texting one another. And it just drives me absolutely crazy. I'm like, can you not have a conversation, you know? Have you seen that with adults? Have you gone to a restaurant and see how they'll text each other and not talk to each other?
I do that if the people I'm surrounded by, I don't want them to know what I'm talking about. Like if I want to say something specifically to somebody in the group, but I don't want the rest of the group to hear it, I'll text them. But otherwise, I'm actually having a conversation.
And you know what? That actually gives me complex because I think people really do that. And then I'm thinking, are they talking about me?
No, I really do that. I absolutely do that.
I love that. Well, speaking of this, so today was really interesting because there was an article that came out in the Daily News Journal. And it was really good. It's by Evan Melins. And he came up with this article, and I thought this just goes right into what I've been talking to my kids about even. And it's about the pressure against social media companies, and that now it's going to play out in court about how what's happening with our kids is affecting their mental health. And I know that if you don't have children or grandkids or nieces and nephews or anything like that, I think that it can affect your mental health whether you're an adult or not. But this is where the question I want to toss up to everybody listening out there to kind of debate a little bit is because, you know, I don't like when government overreaches, because this is something I do feel when you talk about kids that parents should be an absolute in the middle of it and immersed in that whole topic. But on the flip side of it, I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of kids that are by themselves or in a situation where, you know, parents can't monitor all the time. And they try to put some fail-safes in there for kids. And so this is really interesting because I wanted to point this out because the 2 lawsuits that are happening in California, one of the biggest group that this lawsuit is come about from is actually Metropolitan Nashville Public School System. And so basically what they're saying is in the recent groups, you know, that they've turned to the courts to try to get companies to change their practices. And I guess it has to do with this whole legal action thing against TikTok and Snapchat, YouTube, and Meta, which I think is the one that owns Facebook and Instagram. And so there's still, what's happening is the plaintiffs and the social media companies, they're trying to get this, that there's some kind of more, like, I guess more fail-safes in there as far as the mental side of this goes. So up to 95% of these teenagers, like ages 13 to 17 in the U.S., use social media. I can tell you my daughter uses it heavily. My son only uses it when he's gaming, okay? But what's happening is this case is about them not stepping in and taking responsibility for what the content is and the protection of the youth of the content that's in there, that it's causing mental health issues. So what they're talking about is that the companies are saying, like, look, we're not responsible. You're an adult. You know what you kids should be putting on and taking off. And it says TikTok, also spokesperson from them was saying that they have an automatic 60-minute time limit. Some of the stuff that they're talking about is so veiled. And the reason why I say that is because they're trying to get past the first challenge of where the social media companies are pushing back and saying, no, we're not responsible. Your parents are, and, you know, we're throwing this out. But apparently they got past the first set of, I guess, when they were trying to say, no, I don't want to do it. And so federal court said at this particular point, this federal judge ruled in a preliminary stage that many aspects of the platforms for which the companies are putting in there are liable. And the biggest thing has to do with products. And I was just talking to Chris about this because Product placement. So I don't know, you all have seen where these kids are going out there and they're trying things and they're doing TikTok fads and whatnot. And so they're trying to kind of hold these social media companies accountable for this because they're pushing these products. That's how these kids are making their money, right? Is the product placement that's in there. So I really want to, very much hear from what everybody has to say. I mean, you can reach us on the Members Nutrition Super Text line at 615-737-9986. And they're saying right now that the children are experiencing unprecedented mental health crisis, which is fueled by social media. But here's the thing about this. I feel like with my kids, it's if you take it away from them completely, they're missing out on everything because they're immersed in that world. That is their world. You're always taking account of the environment that you're in, right? So if you take it away and it's like a cold turkey, you take it away, they're not knowing anything that's going on. They're missing everything. They're not involved. And that's a very, very difficult position to put them in because now mentally they feel disconnected, right? And then if you let them just do whatever they want on it, obviously that's very dangerous as well. But I have a little bit of a flip on this too, is that when my son was 3.5, he got diagnosed with leukemia. And I always tell people that have listened to my show on the weekends know all about this, that I always say, if you think of getting a cancer diagnosis for your kid's bad once, get it 3 times. And then he had a bone marrow transplant. And I share this with you about social media and this whole debate about it and mental health, because when he was getting his transplant in Seattle Children's Hospital, his only way he could communicate was when he was gaming and he was talking to gamers with a headset. Because, kids that get really sick like that, they can't be around physically other people. So this was how he was talking to people, gaming with them, having fun with them. And, this was something and to this day, and he, like I said, he's graduating this year, he's 18 and all of his story is not for the show and for another time, but just to say that 3 of these kids that he was gaming with that got him through this really difficult time when he was going through this transplant, he's still friends with to this day. So it's hard for me sometimes as a parent to look at it and say, is it good or bad? Is it how, are the social media companies actually supposed to be responsible for this? I mean, I don't know. Belle, I know you've been hearing me kind of ramble on about this a little bit. I don't like that government would overreach in this. I think this has to be parental, but I do think there has to be fail-safes put in. Do you think that the social media companies are doing a good enough job with that right now?
I don't think that's their job. I think your job as a parent is to control that. A social media company's job is to make money. Anytime you ask for the government to step in and do something, you're asking for failure to be put in place to correct a failure. Because anytime, let's just put it this way: you're asking the people that have put us, the idiots that have put us $34 trillion in debt, to fix something for you on social media. If that's your request, you are not a serious person.
Right?
But if you are a parent and you are unaware of what your child is doing, you are not doing parenting properly.
Yeah, this seems to be the big debate with so many things. There's a great take on that, Belle. Thanks for weighing in on that, because I feel like you can be right in the middle of it. Yes, do I think that social media companies should be responsible in the fact of the type of content they put through? But I think that's for adults too. And I am not talking about like sexual things and stuff like that. I'm talking about anything. There's so much propaganda out there, and the way that it molds minds. I do feel like in certain ways that there's some sinisterness behind it. One of the biggest things in the article that's in the Daily News Journal today about this has to do with the whole point of it was to sway minds, right? So we're bringing up a generation of children, teenagers, whatever, that everything that they see, they're totally believing. And even though we tell them, and even though school tells them and everything that it's not all true, they still believe it. And they're reacting off of it. That's where the mental health part is coming in. It's where you're getting your cyberbullying, you're getting kids putting stuff on social media that they shouldn't. And I'm going to tell you, I'll just be very, very transparent. My kids are on social media. I'm on social media. And it doesn't mean that I like everything about it. It doesn't mean that, hopefully it doesn't mean I'm irresponsible. I try to maintain and monitor things. But the fact of the matter is, things are going to get through. It's kind of like reminds me of growing up. This is really going to date me, but do you remember when anybody that was in the age of like 40 and up, when we had like the cable TV, and if your parents didn't have the pay-per-view channels and it had the lines in it, and it would be like HBO had lines in it or whatever, and kids would try to like flip through and see what they could see through it. I mean, the curiosity is always going to be there. And the sad part about it is social media technology and everything has made it pull up to the forefront to where it's so easily accessible. It's so easy to look something up, check something out, don't know what a word means, don't know what a picture is. And so no matter how much we try to monitor our kids and how much the social media companies are going to try to, avoid being regulated, and the government and the schools are going to try to regulate it, it's still going to be there. So I feel like educating your kids is kind of what we all need to be doing right now. And I want to hear, again, I want to hear from all of you out there. I know that my Matt Murphy audience is out there. The Members Nutrition Super Text line at 615-737-9986. So where does this stand now with everything? I think that the lawyers, the big question is going to be for them is are the social media platform products going to be held for product liability? I think that's where the angle that the schools and everybody's taking. I do know that this is very different than talking about like Chat GPT. These are two separate type of items. We're just talking about social media platform. For those of you that have been saying, they banned Chat GPT in New York City schools, that's a whole different element from talking about the social media mental health crisis that is out there right now. And so it's funny because I feel like they're trying to find an angle here that will allow them to put some regulation on those companies, hold those companies responsible for some of the content that they allow out there. But again, I think it's futile. I think that what's going to happen, these kids are going to figure out a way to do it anyway. And as parents, I really do feel that our job is to make sure that we are supporting them. We are behind them 110%. We're teaching them what's right and wrong. And I know that's like a given, but it's more than that. Ask them to show you what they're interested in. I mean, like my kid, instead of just, letting her sit in the corner and watch TikTok videos for 10 hours, like, what are you watching that's so interesting? I literally ask her that question. I mean, I think as parents, we need to really be more engaged when it comes to that. I mean, I want to see what kind of videos she's looking at. What's her history on it? I mean, for those of you that are out there want to know, I mean, even if you can't monitor your kid 24/7, which obviously none of us can, you can at least go back and look at some of their history. You can check some things out. And I also think it takes a village, everybody. I mean, you see something on there that someone else's kid or teenagers doing, I mean, sound the alarm. I mean, to let them know, let the parents know. I mean, we all have to work together to try and be able to do that. And I think that's absolutely, utterly important. And I do think, too, that by taking something completely away, and there's been some argument about this, just ban it completely. That obviously we all know is not going to happen. But the thing of it is, if you take something to where you're not exposing them at all to it, they don't know how to handle it, period. But I would love to take a call. I have Linda from Westmoreland, and she wanted to talk a little bit about TikTok. Hi, Linda. Welcome into the Matt Murphy Show.
Welcome. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I just listened to your comments and everything on social media, and I feel in my heart that you should separate TikTok from the other social medias because it's more of a homeland security thing, and people aren't understanding the part of that when you say homeland security. You could have a daughter that is head of or, up in the Homeland Security and have a daughter that her information is on TikTok, and somehow or another we know that it's connected with China, and they are filtering everything that goes through TikTok and collecting everything they can.
Linda,
and
you're right. You're right, Linda. They are.
Yeah, and also if you have a Homeland Security daughter, she's on TikTok, then they're going to seep into the father. Somehow or another, there will be information there that they could possibly collect, and I don't think TikTok should be put in with a social media. And I do agree with you, parental guidance is definitely needed. Even if you get parental guidance, they will still figure it out. But it is absolutely ruining our children, and social media is raising our children. And God bless you, and you guys have a great day. I listen to you all the time.
Oh, Linda, thank you so much for weighing in on that call today and on this subject today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your take. I agree with you that that's why I always say there's something more sinister behind all of this and the information that we're gathering. It's like we're creating a society of very dumbed down intelligence, and where people are thinking for us and it's being made to think a certain way. And I actually had Nick and Franklin had texted in, and he said that one thing he worries about the most is not his child discovering it on his own, but being exposed to it by friends and neighbors. And he said not every parent parents their child the same way, and that we can do our best to shield him from the things that will corrupt him, but can't ultimately stop it from happening. Thank you for texting us, Nick. Yeah, I agree. Bottom line is that when the kid, it's not your kid. It's like the Santa Claus theory. I call it the Santa Claus theory. I learned this when my child was in elementary school. They actually had all the parents come to a meeting at the school that my kids attended in elementary school, and it was just parents only. And it was talking about how we needed to take social media out, the TikTok, the everything else, the Instagram, whatever, Snapchat and everything, and we need to take it all away and not let the kids have phones until they were older and whatnot. But like as Nick brought up, and the just texting from Franklin, the thing of it is that their friends are going to have things and they're going to show it to them. And it's like, I can remember to this day, I was in 4th grade when John Sinclair ruined it for me that Santa wasn't real. And it was, my parents were trying to keep the secret, but nope, not John. John Sinclair, to this day, I am old as dirt, and he ruined that for me. And I remember that. And so you do remember the things that other kids show you that just stick with you the rest of your life. So I think that's a good one. Another, someone else that had texted in had said the boomers are scared to death of TikTok. Here's a funny thing. I'd like to think I'm not a boomer at all, but I think that part of the idea of that is that they see things from a broader spectrum and a bigger scope. So I love that you guys are weighing in on this topic. We're going to keep talking about it, but we've got to take a break real quick. But when we come back, let's dig into this a little bit more. Let me know what your thoughts are, and we will come back and see if we can solve this issue. I don't know. But you're listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. I'm your host, Jennifer Sheets, filling in today. And we are talking about social media and our kids and teenagers and actually adults and the mental health and how government is stepping in and trying to get some regulation done. And I love the weighing in that I'm getting from callers and those texting. Keep it coming. The Members Nutrition Super text line is 615-737-9986. I love everything I'm hearing because this is such a polarizing topic because it doesn't matter, and I truly mean this, whether you have a child or a niece or a nephew or a friend or whatever. If us adults, I think there is an addiction built into this. And what we were talking about with our younger generation is the fact that I think it's molding them to not be thinking for themselves. I mean, truly, it's problem solving. And here's a great example of this. I was at McDonald's. Yes, I was at McDonald's like about 3 weeks ago, and I always use my card. And for whatever reason, because I happen to have like a $5 bill, I was getting like a iced tea or something from there. The number, I think it was like it came to like $3.99 or $3.01 or something like that. So I gave her I gave her like the 5 with a 1 penny is what it was. It was $3.01. I gave her 5 1 penny so I could get 2 ones back and not get change. And she looked at me like I had 10 heads. Now I know that I probably look like I have 10 heads or say things that make people scrambled up a little bit from time to time, but I couldn't figure out how does she not know how to do this, right? And now you see that what's happened. Have all of you out there noticed that like when you go to a lot of these venues, they make you use they say no cash allowed. And I get this a lot because my daughter does competitive cheer. And so a lot of these venues that say card only, no cash. And then there's some still that'll say cash only, but those lines are the longest because apparently people don't know how to count money anymore. So that being said, I feel like we're not raising this generation of people being able to think on their own. And I do think it's deeper than that. I think the persuasion that is built into the algorithms of these apps and that social media uses is totally purposeful. I mean, and it's really, when we think about it, when we want to talk about being sinister and things like that, it's really not much different than, how marketing companies look at their audience and then they decide what shows that they want to advertise on. I mean, that you want that group that's going to have that buying power from you completely. And, I do think that one of the things that this is a really good point because one of the people was texting in said, since parents don't have the ability and energy to keep up with technology, they said that's the responsibility of media to challenge children and raise them. Like, it's funny, like the takes that I'm getting from everybody because it's such a cross. I feel like I'm really on the fence on this subject. Obviously, we want to protect our kids. Obviously, we want to be able to do that. But at the same time, if you don't expose them to any of it, they're not going to know how to handle it when it's exposed to them unintentionally. But I want to listen to what Jason has to say. We have Jason from Nashville calling in about kids and math. Jason, thanks for calling in today. Welcome to the Matt Murphy Show.
Nice to meet you. And I wanted to make a comment because I heard you talking about, the kid looked at you like you had 10 heads. Well,
yes.
I had the same experience. And how did you get to the age you're at and not know how to do that? I mean, it's almost something that's incomprehensible to me.
I think that common sense is not that common anymore, Jason. And it's not helping all of these apps we have out there, don't you think?
I don't think it's helping anything, and it's actually, I believe it's hurting them without them knowing it.
I agree, and that's the scary part about that. Jason, I appreciate you calling into the show today. Thank you for giving us your take on the subject. It's just super, super important that we address it and we talk about it. And, it's interesting, too, because if you don't have kids, sometimes you feel like you don't have an opinion about it. Yes, you do. You have an absolute opinion because it affects adults as much as it affects kids. I firmly believe that. If it says, it's funny because someone like Covey says, not to be that guy, if your drink was $3.99 and you gave the girl 5 and a penny, she has every right to look at like 10 heads because that math doesn't math. You would get back to 1s and 2 pennies. Hey, listen, I was just trying to share how this story went. All I could tell you is the fact that they did not know how to count change back. All I needed was a couple ones back. You're right. I don't claim to be the mathematician, but thank you for calling me and checking me on that. But anyway, but Mike H. texted in, he said, TikTok is just a small part of the problem. In this high-tech society, we have crooks, influencers, child molesters, rapists, etc. And the problem is we can't put a face to them. And because of the structure of society. It is near impossible to function and protect yourself at the same time, Mike. Yes, without a doubt. So we're getting ready to take a break at the bottom of the hour. We're going to keep on going, keep everything coming. This is a great topic for us to discuss, and maybe we can figure out the answers today. But you are listening to the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's a beautiful day in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. And I am your host, Jennifer Sheets, filling in for Matt Murphy. And you can catch him later this afternoon as he is filling in for Brian Wilson from 3 to 7 today. And if you're just joining us, just driving through, just turning the radio on, we are in a really hot topic here. And I think it's a necessary topic to be talking about. And it's about social media and our kids and the legislation that is trying to be, put up against the social media companies to hold them responsible for some of the content that's put out there. But more really the angle they're taking is the product liability. I think they're just trying to figure out a way to have them be responsible for something in a way that'll actually get through and be accepted in legislature. So I've really loved everybody weighing in, and it was very interesting because somebody had texted earlier, and just bear with me because I want to make sure that I say this right, because it was very serious because they were talking about TikTok trends, and this is a scary thing, and this is why I think the school systems and everybody are trying to get some kind of regulation involved in it. But again, it goes back to parents being able to take charge themselves and make sure they're raising them correctly. But one of the things that was brought up about their 14-year-old did the Benadryl challenge and ended up in the hospital. And that is an extremely scary thing. If anybody knows what that is, I think there was someone that had passed away recently from that. And I think that it's just one of those things where they see what's going on and they want to be popular, and they're getting their value from the likes, the interaction from the social media, and they get used to it. And that's what validates them. You know, how many people are following you, how many are liking them. And then they also see these kids that are out there that are becoming millionaires from the content that they're putting up and the products that they're putting up, and they want to be a part of it. So they think that by doing this, that's going to make that happen faster. That's going to happen for them. And they just cannot see, just like when we were all younger, if you're in my generation, you just can't see the pitfalls and what can happen, that it's dangerous and deadly. And I know that if you go watch some of the old 80s movies, especially, even some of the 70s movies, the things that kids did and they just were wild and crazy too. But we forget about that. It's so easy for us to get caught up into the social media world and say, it wasn't like that when we were kids because we were outside doing stuff. But I mean, kids were standing between two cars while they're both going down the street, and we did stupid stuff like that too. But I think the difference was a danger that you could actually see. Like, that's a danger you look at and you go, okay, that's really dumb. You got one foot on one car hood, one foot on the other, and we're driving down the road. You can, kill yourself doing that. I think the thing that's so scary for parents and just even if you're not a parent, anybody that has to deal with social media, it's an unseen kind of danger. Like, you can't tell everything that's behind it. Actually, someone had texted in about that one of the scariest part is because it's so veiled. You're hiding behind something. And, someone that also had texted in said, if you think about it for a minute, most issues and challenges related to children come to the fact that adults should only bring into the world the children they're able to raise in the full sense of the world. And I respect and understand that, but, in utopia, that's right. But guess what? Things happen, and there are going to be kids brought into this world, whether they're planned or not, right? And I think that, again, I go back to the statement that I made in Stand By, is that it takes a village. And one of the other parts that is important to this that you have to remember is that if you keep things completely away from them, they're not going to know how to handle it when it's introduced to them. And I'm going to say that again because this drives me nuts with people. Like, you say, okay, just take everything away. Don't let them have it. They can't see it. They can't do anything. But if you're not letting them know what words mean, what is on there, what could be shown to them, why it's bad, you have to have conversations, no matter how difficult that they are. Plain and simple. And this is a really good text I got from John. He said, social media should be a small part of life at all, and if at all, not a way of life. It's such a true statement that children have to be taught to have priorities, discipline, character, and integrity. And this particular texter said too, God is first, then education, hobbies, gaming, sports, etc. Parents and guardians should practice and model this. Society should not be the teacher of kids. And that comes from John in Lawrenceburg. John, I do agree with you. Society should not be the teacher of kids. But we need to be, as parents, the protector for our kids from society in a certain way. And that is understanding what's out there. And anybody that puts their head in the sand thinking that it doesn't affect them, what's happening, you're wrong, because those that are aging, this is the generation that's going to be supposedly taking care of us. And I don't know if they could even look at us and be able to tell us what color our eyes are, because their heads are buried into their into their phones and their devices all the time, and it's just very, very difficult. I think that when I talked about common sense, it's very true. Another texter said we call it common sense because it's only common when we're being taught the same things from our parents. And here's the other part of that too, is when you're challenging your child to social media, you need to ask them why they're listening to it, why they're watching it, what is appealing about them. Make them answer you. I mean, if you start hearing, well, my friends are doing and this is doing, okay, you can have that type of conversation for those of you that maybe are struggling on how you have this conversation. But then on the flip side of it, if they're saying, well, I'm watching this type of video, or these are the things that are popular, this is a clue into your kid's brain, and it can be a very scary place, yes, especially if it's a teenage brain. But you need to know, you got to probe a little bit, you got to find out what's going on and ask those questions of why they're doing that. And it is funny because I agree with the texter that just said the government can control smoking ads from magazines and television, alcohol ads on TV, where you can't film someone drinking the alcohol, but then it says why ban it when the networks and magazines should be held liable. I mean, we're all over the map on this, I think. I think the general consensus is something has to change. The mental health of our kids is in jeopardy, and I think their thought process is in jeopardy of how they reason and what they think is important to them, what's valued in life. And I also think that something else that's missing, if you remember being an older generation, we always talk about this, and I hope that we have younger listeners. I hope that they're listening to this. There's a reason why Gen X talks about when we used to mow the lawn and weed whack or drink water out of the hose. I mean, there was a physical sense of things that we did when we were younger, and you had to figure a lot out on your own. What do they say? We're the true latchkey kids, like the first generation of that, be the last generation of that, right? So what I think that the challenge becomes as a parent is actually physically, taking that phone away, taking that device away, having a conversation, and then letting them have it back, because they have to learn what's right and wrong. They have to learn how to decipher that themselves. And it's okay if you disagree with me, but I do think that if you completely take it away from them, it's still there. You're not going to get rid of TikTok. No matter how much we all maybe think we want to, you're not going to get rid of it. You're not going to get rid of Snapchat. None of those. What's going to happen to those eventually is if, it's just like Chris Hand was talking about in his show earlier today, is if you get one of those platforms like Vine was back then, it was very similar to TikTok, but you could only do videos for like 6 seconds. Is someone coming up with something that is a more intriguing platform, but maybe has all the fail safes in? So for all of my people out there that are entrepreneurs or want to jump into starting something new, there's your idea right there. Try to see if you can come up with something like that, because we all know that that probably isn't going to happen. But it is interesting, as worried as we are about TikTok, there's a statistic out there that says YouTube is actually the one that is chosen more by our youth and teens. And it's 95% of them go to YouTube, which is very interesting to me. And I think it's funny because someone that was texting had texted about that boomers were afraid of TikTok. It's because it has a tendency of being used by a younger generation. And I use TikTok to tell little short videos about hiring, firing, getting jobs, that kind of thing. I use it as a little tool in the hopes that the audience that I have on there, what little one I have at the moment, but the audience that I have on there can take some little tidbits with them, as they go about their day and try to improve their life and their career and where they want to go. But when it comes to Instagram, we're at 62% and Snapchat is 59%. So I think being aware of all the platforms and as a parent, even though you don't want to, you should go on them and see what they're all about, because perception becomes fact. And if you can kind of use the parental controls, there's a lot of parental controls on these apps. There's a lot of things where you can shut internet down. I have some friends that do that. Although I don't know how I could do that. I don't know if I would be good if you shut my internet down for an hour. Not because of social media, but because I'm always checking my email and that kind of thing for work. So that might throw me a little bit. But I respect the heck out of it, because I think as parents we just have to start trying to do something. Someone else just texted and said, I agree with Belle that is 100% up to the parents. But the socials need to take the tools available that allow the parents to police what is going on, make the tools available that allow the parents to police what is going on. And it goes on to say Snap, for example, has very few tools available to filter content and contacts. I agree with you on that tremendously. I hate Snapchat more than I hate TikTok. And so clearly I'm not being paid to endorse them today. But I do, because that is a scary platform where kids can put pictures on, or anybody, an adult, to someone, and it disappears. And if someone tries to screen record it or anything like that, or snap it, it lets you know that they did that. And that is just a scary platform for kids, because, when we're younger, we don't always make the best sense. And when we're older and, you go out with your friends and maybe, have a little too much fun party, and maybe you don't make the best sense either out of that situation. I mean, it's just making good and bad decisions is not limited to whether you're youthful or you're old. That's all of us. Okay, we all got to own that. But I do think that we're at this position right now where you have to use the filters that are in place. And where I think this social media does have a responsibility is, if you're going to put something out there, you got to put the warning label on it, right? It'd be just like me going and buying a product to eat, and it has ingredients in it that I need to know about, of whether or not I want to eat that, if it's going to hurt me or not. I have that choice, but the warning label was on it. And I think that this is kind of where the argument comes in with like the school systems and stuff, talking about the effect on mental health, is because the warning label needs to be taken in by the parents, though. The kids don't understand that. You have to know what that app is, know what that social media platform is, what is it capable of, what can you do to help protect your kids from harm from it. And, this made me laugh. Jason just texted and he says, how are they going to discover Boone's Farm if they live in a bubble? Yeah, I remember that. It was MD 2020 back in the day. Belle, do you remember that?
Yes, and you have to take everything Jason says with a grain of sarcasm.
Without a doubt, yes. I feel like at this point that, we've been talking about this for a little while now, and I appreciate, because the texts keep coming in, discussing this topic. It is a hot topic. I think that we can all agree that this has actually changed our youth. I don't think necessarily for the better. And it's been a society issue. And I think that one thing we can all agree is that we have to take responsibility for not only ourselves, but, in helping our children so that they make better decisions and they become free thinkers. There's the old story of the lemmings, I guess you could say, where you go follow the lemmings and they go running off the cliff, and everybody just said, well, they were running, so I ran and went with them too. I completely agree with that. But, it's funny because I had someone just send me a picture of robin's eggs. That's pretty funny. Someone just said, no, it doesn't take a village. You don't want the village idiot raising your kids. Sandra. It was Sandra. Sandra said that. Yeah, that's very true. And, don't you find that too? Like many, many times with kids, you find that who they surround themselves with. And it's the same with, I talk about in the professional environment, birds of a feather flock together, right? So if the whoever that they're around, their parents are going to raise them similarly, I guess, is what you could say. And so you have to be careful of that. You have to watch that. I don't know about the challenges that are out there and how many of you are aware of the actual Benadryl challenge. And I think there was one, it was pretty bad. And I do think that there should be something where we're watching this and taking part of understanding the dangerous TikTok trends that go viral and the risks associated, because kids will talk about it and you may not know what it means and what it is, because they had the boat challenge. I think that was one, the scarf game. That was the blackout challenge. And I think we had something similar like this when I was younger, but the scary part of it is it just keeps showing kids after kids after kids doing it. And it's one of those things right now where we're going to have to make sure that we're monitoring not only the kids that are out there, who they're hanging around with, but looking at the parents and having conversations with them about, has your kid mentioned this? Has your kid mentioned that? I think that's where that all goes. But I am going to tell you, we got to take another break. But there's one person I wanted to talk about something that they said that was very, very poignant because this is serious. We talk about these TikTok trends being dangerous. And weighed in and said that I'm a first responder. My kids have grown up with a very good understanding of what goes on in the real world. Some might say they grew up too fast, but now that they are adults, they are super well-rounded, grounded adults. And I love that. And that's exactly what it is. You can't shield everything from them. But we're gonna take a break real quick, and when we come back, we're gonna kind of wrap up this little session on social media and dive into something else. See if we can solve the world's problems today. But you are listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am your host, Jennifer Sheets, and nearing the end of our first hour here, I want to first of all thank everybody for being patient with me. I love that everyone is texting. When I host my show on the weekend, I get more messages through my LinkedIn and things. People aren't texting as much, and I absolutely love this. I love the interaction. So thank you for bearing with me if it sounded a little like I'm like reading and talking at the same time. I'm just kind of looking at this, and I'm loving the feedback I'm getting. And Chris Weber sent a text that was really good, because I don't want to end this hour of talking about this on all negative note, for sure, because that mentions, why is it always negative? Social media has launched a lot of businesses and made many millionaires of people who otherwise would not have been successful. It's a way to get their product out there, especially the younger entrepreneurs. There's no other better tool in the world for business and social media. And I appreciate that take. I do agree that there's so much good that does come out of it, but with the good comes the bad as well. And I think this is more of a topic of discussion of how we're raising our younger generation these days. I mean, really what it boils down to is the values that we're teaching them, where we're going with that, and how we want them to be better humans when they become adults. So can't wait to discuss more of this and talk about AI and how that's affecting jobs and what's going on with the economy when we come back after the top of the hour. But you are listening to The Matt Murphy Show, and I'm your host, Jennifer Sheets, on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am your host, Jennifer Sheets. Today I am filling in while Matt Murphy is going to be filling in from 3 to 7 today. And for Brian Wilson, and I host a show on the weekends called Master the Workforce on Sundays from 11 to 12. And I'm so excited and honored and humbled that I was asked to fill in today and hope I can do this justice. But I'm excited to talk to all of you out there. Bear with me. This is my first time doing 3 hours. And on the weekend when I have my show, I have a different form of communication. I guess most of my listeners are emailing or messaging on LinkedIn, and I love the text line, the Super Talk text line, the Members Nutrition Super text line. It's 615-737-9986. That's 615-737-9986. And I really want you to weigh in on anything that's going on because we're going to talk about it all today. We just got done, and not that we can't revisit it, we certainly can. We were talking about a very important subject about social media and the youth and what it's doing to our younger generation, how they are growing up very differently than we did. And, are we kind of mind numbing them, bending them into not being free thinking and putting all of their self-value into their electronics? Are they kind of subservient to it, I guess is a better way to put it. But it's interesting because this spills over into adults and spills over tremendously into something that I talk about quite a bit on my show. And it has to do with adults and how we are using social media. So one thing that has happened, and I don't know if any of you out there are aware of this, is the individuals that as they're getting a review from their employer or they're getting let go or whatever the case is, they're taking their phone and they're hiding it. And then they're recording them getting let go or having their review. And then what they do is then they post it. And it just goes viral at that particular point. And so this has been just a tremendous trend that's gone on. It's actually awful. You think about it. And I know that some people are like, well, this is terrible that they're letting people go over like a technology platform, right? But this is think about this for a second. So if I want to be a remote worker, right, and I'm working remote, it's because this is more convenient for my lifestyle. I don't have to come in the office every day. I don't have to sit and talk to Susie Q at the desk. I'm not seeing people dancing at my door or whatever the case is. You're yourself. So usually people, when they're working remote, their form of communication obviously is going to be phone and email and Teams meetings or Zooms meetings or Google Meet, however that looks, right? So think about this. If they're going to let you go, what do you expect them to do? Do you want to come knock at your door, come sit on your front porch, sit on your couch, tell you that they're going to let you go or give you a review that way? I mean, because the argument of why that they are showing this online is because the fact that they feel like, okay, I'm being wrong. They shouldn't let me go over a technology apparatus. But for me, I'm just like, what else are they supposed to do? So all of the Matt Murphy listeners out there, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. I mean, do you think that it's fair for someone to secretly record a review from an employer or or a disciplinary action from their employer or being let go or laid off from their employer? It's an interesting take because it's another way of talking about continuing our conversation of the first hour of social media and how it's affecting our children. Now we're talking about technology and how it affects what we all spend 70% of our lives doing, and that is working. So I definitely want to hear what you have to say about that, and feel free to text away. But one of my things that I caution everybody about is everything that goes up online is always going to be there. It just does not go away. And I can tell you from being in an industry where we give people jobs for the last 24 years, people look at that. I mean, my advice to all of you out there, if you're going to look for a new career and you're going to actually work for someone else and not start your own company, you might want to do a little clean sweep of your social medias and all of your things, because they're going to look at it. If you put it out there, it's fair game. It's fair game. I mean, Belle, do you think that it's fair for an employer or someone to look at your social media if you're looking for a job? I mean, what do you think about that?
Fair. I don't think it's unfair. I mean, like you said, you put it out there. It's no different than if you spray painted graffiti on the side of your house and then somebody was like, hey, I saw that slur you painted on the side of your house. What's that about? Oh, you weren't supposed to look at that.
That's right. That's
What?
right. Yeah, you were supposed to look at that. What is with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you put yourself out there, then either stand by what you had to say or delete it.
I agree. I mean, I stand by that too. And I'm like, someone just texted and said, yes, it's absolutely fair to secretly record. Hey, this is why I said we put this out there for you guys to give your take and your opinion and your insight on it. I think that if you can secretly record, then there's also a flip side to it. Then so can you be recorded on the other end of it. It's not so much always that I think people have something to hide when they're doing that. I think that there are some bad employers out there, face it, just as much as there's bad employees out there. It's tit for tat, right? But I do think that when it comes down to this, is that what's fair for one is fair for the other. I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I want to remote work and I don't want to have to talk and deal with anybody and I'm going to work here. But then when something happens and you have to be let go, that you expect them at your front door. How else are they supposed to do it? I mean, to me, that's the only logical way to do it. Now, whether or not you record it or not, okay, this is where it's the challenge in HR, because you can record someone else and say it's absolutely fair, but then what if the company recorded it and they put it on their social media? They would be up for a lawsuit, right? So it's weird dynamic, because I understand why people would record something. I think that people record it as a protection of themselves. They want to make sure that if something's awry in the world, especially with their career or their job, that they want proof that this is what happened. And I think it's more of a protection to the person that texts that. I completely agree. And I love it because these text lines are blowing up. Good. Okay, good. Because I want to hear what everyone has to say about this. And, it's really like, if someone said, if it's a one-party consent state and not against company policy, I don't see a reason against recording conversations with your employer. And again, I'm going to go and revert back to the fact, too, that when you open that Pandora's box, you open it both ways. You can't have it one way and not the other way. And you have to think about, why would somebody secretly record? I do think that there is a part where you have the people that are protecting what's happening to them and protecting their role, and that's why they're recording it, and they don't want any miscommunication of that. But then there's also people that use that as to the detriment to the employer. Giving you an example of something with the company that I've had for years. We had an instance where we were staffing at an internet fulfillment center, and I caught on camera 2 people stealing from this internet fulfillment center. Clear as day. So security approaches them. They get angry. They go to their locker, and they had some orange and an apple in their locker, and they throw it at security. And so, I mean, it's not funny, but and this was on video. So they throw it at security, and they go out in the parking lot, and they had stuff in their car. They're throwing it at them, whatever. Okay. So they're gone. All that happens. Next thing you know, up on Google, these 2 people are putting up how terrible the company is, the terrible this, that they were accused of something that they didn't do, never go work for. And then those Google reviews sit there. And as a company, when you know that something's wrong, if you try to contact Google to have them taken out, you know what they tell you? This is what they tell you. You just have to have more people give Google reviews that are better, was we don't take them down. So basically, you can go bash and do whatever you want to do and hurt someone's business. But what I've seen happen now is employers, I think, are fighting back on the wrongful type of ones, because they're coming back and they're suing for when their business is hurt by that. So meaning if they can prove that they lost business in dollars due to something that had happened, like been put up there, that people made that decision and it was false, then they're winning. They're starting to win. So they're starting to fight back a little bit. But, it's just at the same time, I asked a question too, like, isn't it a crime to secretly record? Todd said, how is that legal? And they're all over TikTok. It's all over TikTok. And it's just a huge thing that people are doing. It's almost like, I get the feeling some of them are just doing crazy things, and just so that they can have their boss have a meeting with them on Zoom or Teams or something so they can record it. And so Roberta said, she said, I process background checks for employers and social media checks are done. Roberta, exactly. It's like what I asked about. I mean, if you put it out there, it's fair game. And it does tell you a lot about someone. And sometimes it's definitely not all bad. I think it just depends on who's the one looking at your social media profile and what type of role you're looking for and what the qualifications are and what they want to do. Another thing is that someone else said recording the employer could be illegal depending on the laws of the state you're in. Yes. And that this is where I think some of them are getting into trouble because they're just doing these videos and throwing them up there. And some of them are very, very hurtful to the employer. Then before everyone wants to say, well, I'm always against, like that you want to say that you're against employers and for employees or how everything. I'm just, for the record, for me, I'm on both ends of the spectrum. I've worked for people. I have been an employer, and I feel like there's two sides to every story, right? If we don't know what all the situation is why somebody's getting let go, which is, important to mention. We also don't know that maybe the company is trying to quiet fire or the person is trying to quiet quit, which is, we did a whole show on this on my show. It was called Quiet Quitting, Quiet Firing. I'd never heard of it, but it happens every day. And it's just, for all of the Gen Xers and stuff that are out there, this is something that's been going on for years. They just titled it pretty much as where people kind of want to get fired, or people put people in a position to where they quit so they don't have to fire them. Yeah, that stuff that's going on. But, this Scott brought up, he said this, which is really good. He says, I wouldn't hire you if I found you secretly recorded anyone. You're a problem employee. I can totally understand that, because to me, that at that point, Scott, thanks for texting in about that, because I feel like you're looking for something at that point. You're looking for something to find with somebody that's wrong with them so that you can, I hate saying be in a victim mentality. I don't think that's necessarily it, but I feel like some people are always going to feel wronged and they're going to exploit that. I think they're always going to exploit that. Anthony says, personally, I think it's wrong. If you're not disclosing to the other person, that's kind of messed up. Another thing is good luck getting another job. If potential employers get a hold of that video, aim into that, Anthony, because guess what? As much bias goes into on the side of an employee, there is just as much on the side of the employer when it comes to it. Look, if you, again, we go back to like my question I asked Belle, secretly recording. If you put it out there, I can look at it, and it does, everything just goes both ways. It just keep reminding me that, and that if you're a problem employee, I can make a decision of whether I want to hire you or not, and I don't have to tell anybody about that, right? And then it says the company that I'm referencing had every legal right to post the video of those individuals who made the bad reviews stealing. Yeah, that is what I think is starting to happen. It's a good point, because that's what really should have happened. Say, oh, you got a bad review? Well, let me show the video of you stealing, because that was you. And you could just see, can't you all out there just see all of the lawyers coming out to go after the employer about that if the employer actually posted that? That's what needs to happen, is some of that needs to change around. I think that what's going on in society with this is that it's beat up the employer. But guess what's happening, y'all? I'm going to do my Southern thing, y'all. These employers are replacing problem people with algorithms. These jobs are starting to go away. They don't want to deal with it. And if you, here's my check, put yourselves all in check on this. No matter what you're doing, no matter what field you are in, and if you have an algorithm or a computer software that is going to do the job better than you, they aren't going to put up with the shenanigans of people. They're just going to put that in there and be done. And, that's something else we're going to talk about later today too. But this remote workforce thing is huge, right? Because it poses so many different questions and what is fair and what isn't fair, like the secretly recording, someone letting you go or laying you off. So I'm curious to know and weigh in. Please either call in or on the super text line, the Members Nutrition super text line, 615-737-9986. How many of you out there right now are remote working? And if you're remote working right now, what is your take on bending the rules a little bit? Because it's an untraditional way that we're all sliding into. Do you think that since remote workforce is non-traditional, should it still have to fall under the exact same guidelines, or should we be changing the law to accommodate the new remote workforce? And how does that look? What does that look like And, someone had texted and said, I had a personal trainer at LA Fitness give me a 3-minute boot camp test, and then he signed off on it, and I used it as an That's very funny. That's very funny. I don't know. Videos, I guess they're meant to be satire. Someone else texted in about that. And their opinion happens to be that the labor is exploited for profit, and then they call it performance to avoid unemployment, and it creates tremendous work instability. Yeah, this is, again, you're all going to have a different take on it, but I really challenge everybody to have the dialogue about it and think twice about it. If someone's letting you go over a platform or a technology of some sort, what is the reason? It could be right, it could be wrong. In everybody's world, it's going to be their world and how they feel about it, regardless. And meaning that we all have our own perceptions of how things are. And I do think it is a little dangerous when you start putting something out there without context behind it. And that seems to be like regular media, right? But when you start putting things out there without context in it, you leave things up for interpretation. Maybe you don't want to, but we're going to take a break and we're going to finish and keep talking about this as we keep the text rolling in on the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am your host, Jennifer Sheets, filling in today. And if you were hoping to hear Matt, you'll get to hear him today later on. He is filling in for Brian Wilson from 3 to 7. We are talking about people secretly video recording their reviews or getting let go or laid off and then posting it on social media for it to go viral. And what you guys all think about that. Like, how do you feel about that? I mean, I think it's really crazy that people are doing it. I get they have the right to do it. I understand that most people are just trying to protect themselves. But, at the end of the day, the defamation part that kind of happens that's hurting a company, you're not just hurting that company. If there's something that goes down with it, you're also hurting the other people that are actually employed with it. Now, should that happen if the employer has done something terribly wrong and you're trying to point it out as in like your own secret whistleblower self that you may be whatever, I think everything again comes back to what I said before we took the break about context. Context is huge. It's very important to understand all of that. And that's why it's such a good subject up for debate. But think about if you're out there and you have to let somebody go, it's not just secretly video recording through like a Zoom or Teams. There are people actually bringing in these devices into meetings now. And even if it's a meeting of like colleagues, like having a discussion about maybe a problem employee, something like that. And there is this and get this, y'all, I don't know if any of you have seen this. It's been a lot on Instagram, TikTok. I think they've seen it even on Facebook. It's this tiny little device. It looks like if you had a business card and it was made of a really thin plastic, and it's a recording device that translates everything that's said into text in kind of like where you just plug it into your computer and it all shows up of what everyone had just said in a conversation, and it goes back and forth like it does it almost as if you were writing a script or some sort. And I think the danger we get into that is that how are we supposed to, as a society, actually have conversations where we problem solve things if every time we turn around we're worried about someone recording what we're having to say and take it out of context and using it against us? And I'm like, well, where does that stand? Like, what happens? How do you not know that you bring someone in, you have a conversation, maybe it's not even work related. You're talking to someone about something else and you're having an opinion, you're having a great conversation and they've recorded it and they post it. Oh, I mean, this is what we're talking about, right? This is where we're at. And, I think it's just a way that society has to look at things right now. And I do believe, too, that somebody that had texted and said getting laid off is one thing, fired is different. Yes, I believe that very much so. I had a friend that had messaged me on Facebook from Michigan, and she works in nuclear engineering. And she had come to me looking for a job because they got onto a Teams meeting, and that was 5 states. So it was about 50 people. And whoever the leader was of the boss or whatever that came in and delivered the news just said, hey, technology has just taken over your jobs and, you've all been let go. You've all been laid off. And then just proceeded to kind of go through what the process was. So they all got on there together, and got all laid off as a group. And there's some controversy about that, right? Like, should you have done it and taken the time to do it individually, not in a group? Or was it safer for the company to do it in a group versus doing it one at a time to where they could get in a conversation that put them in a difficult position? It also goes to show none of their jobs are safe, just by the way. Just a side note. Hey, the other thing I wanted to say, too, is, when you talk about recording people, you have to be very, 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 very careful that when you do that you are protecting yourself if you choose to post that, because again, this is going to come back at you if you don't. And like I said, the companies are fighting back. Someone texted, I was terminated over a minor attendance misunderstanding while working remote. Had worked for the company for 12 years, last 2 remote. I think remote work depersonalizes the process. If I were on site, there would have been a relationship with managers and a face-to-face conversation solution. Yes. And now, if you notice that a lot of the companies are asking the remote workforce to come back, they're asking to come back in, which is one of the things I actually was going to talk about today, because there's a lot of parameters that come with that people are bringing back their freedoms that they had in remote and they want to have them in the workplace now. And that is a big deal. That's what people have decided what they like when they're working at home, and they want it when they're in the workplace. And I think some of the challenges why the companies want to bring people back in is because of the loss of control, the camaraderie. Do I say camaraderie? That's right. Yes, they have that. And I mean, and like you just can't bounce things off of each other and feed off of each other to promote that kind of environment that really helps a company grow organically, which is, people being in thought together and collaborating together and things like that. So we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we got a caller waiting online. We got about several texts to get to today, and we're listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm your host, Jennifer Sheets. We got a couple people on the line who want to weigh in and give their opinions. So we're going to talk to Stephen from Paris, Tennessee. Hey, Stephen, welcome to the Matt Murphy Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I was just thinking about over the course of the past 10 years or so, I've worked a few different jobs, and some of them have high turnover rates where, you sit and think, why is there a lot of employees always being hired for certain places, usually through temp services or whatever, if it's a big industrial place or whatever it is. And if you go to work and you're happy with your job and there's not too much of a workload, or management is running things the way that it should be and HR is doing their job, there shouldn't be so many companies with high turnover rates always constantly hiring. So for the fact that I've always looked, I finally got to the point to where I said, you know what, there's got to be a problem here. And, I would get a job and I would go in and I would start noting. I would say, oh, okay, here it is, or oh, here it is, or oh, here it is. But when you got the fact of the matter of you're going into an HR office, I believe that's what you're talking about, and this is going to be like live Zoom, like a recorded video that can be posted and put somewhere on social media for within the company. I think in one way that could be good, but it's kind of like an invasion of privacy for certain people with certain situations. I could see where it could be misused, and I could see where it could be helpful for some people that try to use excuses against those companies to try to either keep their job or just kind of bully people around and have their way. So it's kind of, tit for tat on that end. But yeah, it's a pretty crazy world we're in here. I always like to use reviews for Google for businesses and companies, restaurants, hotels, mechanics, any kind of stuff like that. I think it's a great thing because there's people out there in business that will take your money because you don't know too much about them, and you have to go and deal with them. And usually those people stay in business for a long time. They used to be able to stay in business because you're coming in, they're gonna get you that one time, and that's it. But they're doing everybody that way. So I think in the near future we're going to see a lot of those kind of people, those shady businesses and small businesses that get over on people. I think the review board for that, like with Google and things, it's gonna kind of weed those kind of people out to where you can look and see and get reviews and see what kind of business they're doing, and hopefully it'll shut them down in the long run. But yeah, it's kind of 50-50, right?
Oh, I appreciate you weighing in on that, Stephen. Without question, I think it is 50-50 on it. And it does really bring out a Google review. I mean, how many of us, if we go to a restaurant or something like that, look at Yelp or Google or something to get a review, and they do the same with companies. I also feel like, too, that there has to be a side for a company where someone that's going and bashing when there's a whole other side to the story that can hurt their business and hurt the other people that are in it, that is fair on that end of it, too. So, yeah, it is on both sides. I actually had someone text in that was agreeing with you, said 100% agree with that caller. I have another person waiting online. It's Tim from Hendersonville. Tim, welcome to the Matt Murphy Show.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I agree as well with the previous caller. There's a time and a place for it. I have a personal experience that I went through last year with a company. I've been in automotive as a quality engineer, quality manager for the last decade, and I took a job with a supplier for GM that was in Spring Hill this last year, and the year prior to that. My track record was excellent there. In fact, when they brought me on, I was trying to turn around the quality for the company, and I was able to do that through the customer scorecard, and all the data and evidence showed the success that I was having there. Well, in April of last year, my father fell ill. I'm an only child, and my mother is previously deceased. So my father passed away in April, and I had to take some time to handle that. Well, the plant manager at the time, his response to that was, don't worry about it. Just take whatever time you need. Don't worry about, going through FMLA. You don't have to do that. We're supporting you through all of that. And the problem is that, after he passed away, after the next week, which, ultimately it was a blessing in disguise that this happened, but I was let go. from the
Wow.
position, just because of the time that I took off. And their reference behind it, even when I got my separation notice, was based on performance. Well, I have emails, data, records, all sorts of things that actually show the contrary to that, to show the actual improvement that the plant had made. I mean, I brought their customer scorecard basically from a 0, all the way to the 4, when the highest you can get is a 5 in the time that I was there. I regained the plant's ISO IATF certification for them in my time that was there. I closed out 68 different customer complaint issues while I was there. So I had data to back that up to a whole other level. And yet, that was their response to it was, well, everyone's just lost faith in you, and it's just due to performance. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me.
Tim, I have a question for you. Do you think that in that situation, especially where, you had all your documents and all the things like that, do you think in a situation like that, that's where people come up with like, hey, I should be recording this so I have more to back me up? Or do you think that it just shows the mentality of what happens sometimes in corporate America, where you get told one thing and something else happens, and then, then you're the one that's paying for it at the end?
I think it's both, really. I think that, I've always made a track record in history of backing up documentation, just as kind of a CYA method. But, you have to protect yourself in that sense. But it also just goes to show that in corporate America, they don't care. I mean, I've seen in plants that I was working with, just in supplier quality development, having to develop places where you'd have, a plant manager or somebody else comes in and they just start laying people off left and right. In fact, there's one place that's in Gallatin that's well known from that, where they actually had a VP of operations that came in and just started laying people off left and right and just clearing it. And what the only excuse that they ever came up with was, he was just not a good fit. So basically, just because they don't like you or don't like the way, that people are, or your mentality or your methodologies that you're going about, or the way you've been trained to do certain things. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And, that industry in general, automotive industry in general, has a very high turnover rate. The retention is terrible. It's a very cutthroat industry in general. So, there's always a need to kind of protect yourself.
Are you in a good place now, Tim? Did this lead to something better for you? Oh, great.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, I ended up taking a year off, which I needed to handle my parents' estate and to fix up the house and get it, ready for sale, and taking care of other responsibilities and things that I needed to do to finalize the estate. And, I needed some time to get myself, mentally prepared for the next chapter, right? So it turned out to be a blessing in its own disguise, but and everything worked out, as it should, and according to God's plan, and everything worked out perfectly. But, just going through that experience itself, I even contemplated for a time, if I should even seek an attorney over that and go after this company because of that. There's a lot of questions that I had, but it first, I guess the hurt to me was that, after all the time, energy, and everything that I put into it to try to turn this company around, and the fact that it was working, that even, GM saw that and they notated that. They saw what I was doing. I had some conversations with them after the fact, after this was done. And they saw what was going on. In fact, they reached back out to me several months later, trying to offer me a job, but I just wasn't ready at that point. But yeah, it's sad because there are companies out there, they absolutely do not care, period, about their employees. They just don't.
Well, Tim, I appreciate you sharing your story with all of us, and I'm glad that it ended up where you're in a better place now and everything. But I'm so sorry that happened to you. And before I let you go, there's a lot of people texting in right now that have experienced the same thing. They're actually chiming in. They know where you were at, and they're agreeing with you. Even at someone, dear friend of mine texted, said, my brother got fired after our dad died too, and they said performance. So this sounds like this is a common thing. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much for calling the Matt Murphy Show, Tim. To kind of piggyback off that, seems like this is something you guys are all responding to, is a way that you are being treated by employers and how that looks when you get let go. And I've even had people say automotive is a toxic industry. I had someone text about that. And that, how companies word of mouth does travel fast, and you have to be careful out there. When you are engaging with your workforce, your human capital lifeline is what I call it. The talent that you surround yourself with, you have to be very careful in how you treat that. I do think that one of the biggest problems in companies today, big, small, or whatever it is I hate to say this, but it's true. There's a lot of issues in middle management. And I think it's that part where you're sitting there going, okay, I'm not at this level yet, or maybe I won't be, but I'm not over here. And then it's trying to make sure that you're keeping people down that are maybe more talented and better than you, and not lifting them up. And in doing so, you're hurting the company and you're hurting the people underneath you. And I always tell everybody all the time, a company can't, especially at the highest level, fix something if they don't know about it. But there are a lot of, especially I would agree in the automotive industry, where there's a lot of people in there that don't share what's going on at a different level, so that the people that can actually make decisions and make changes can actually do that. They kind of hide it because they're always worried about if someone else is doing their job better, that they're going to lose their job. And that's how that goes. And I do think the sentiment I'm getting completely on text messages, everyone's expendable and replaceable no matter the company. That makes me very sad to hear that. It is probably the reason why they say now that 90%, I think it is, 80 or 90% of all new companies are being started by people the age of 40 and over. So the entrepreneurs and the people starting up new businesses now have become that older generation. And I think it's just they're kind of fed up with how things are right now. And it's hard sometimes, how that we all are faced with that at some point as we grow in our careers and in what we spend 70% of our life doing. Someone else said it's hard sometimes, but Tennessee is a right to work state, which keeps the unions out. So there are pros and cons to anything. Yeah, right to work state can work good both ways. It can also work with a right to work state if you have something that's maybe someone that's a very problem employee that you're worried that might hurt other people or do something like that. You just kind of keep it very simple in, letting them, move on in their career path. And then on the other side of it is that a person isn't connected to a company, they can go anytime that they want, so that's always really good. And, so someone says the union is a whole nother can of worms. Yes. I don't know as if we have enough time for all of that in the whole entire afternoon today. But Sandra said most companies have a set amount of time allowed for the death of a family member. I doubt his boss meant to take as many days off as needed, Sandra, that's where I talk about the clarity from that level. I mean, I feel like you ruin what can be such a great group of individuals to help build your organization, your company, your corporate culture when you're not willing to look at things sometimes on a case-by-case basis. I know anybody out there's probably cringing right now thinking well, you have to have policies in place because if you don't, people either take advantage of them or it's unfair to one and fair to somebody else. You have to be across the board. But I do think that we are at a place now, think about it, where everybody's situation is different. And if we want to be treated differently and be respected, then we have to respect everybody's individual spot in that. I mean, obviously, if I'm in a company and I'm an engineer, I'm doing something completely different than an accountant. Okay, so maybe being an engineer on the floor doesn't afford me, to go to the doctor's office in the middle of the day as often as maybe someone, working in a role that's, maybe in an office or something that has that ability to do that. But at the same time, maybe you treat it different, work hard, play hard. They get something else that someone else doesn't. And I think that's how you keep your workforce happy, is being able to make a difference and customize. I mean, companies all the time want to customize their business for who they're selling their products, goods, and services for. We should be customizing how we are with our talent that we surround ourselves with and make them want to come in there, and unfortunately, that someone texted about this. Unfortunately, if you're a middle-aged white male, you are just out of luck. Tennessee is a right-to-work state, and you are not in a union. You are just out of luck. That is another consensus that's been through here. Someone else said, started my own business with family because of this. I take care of my guys, and they take care of me, and we keep it small. That is another thing, too. I mean, I believe that the number has jumped now. I think we're at probably about 92%. I need to look that up. I think it's 92% of the economy in the United States is from small businesses. It's not even from what you would picture as large corporate America. It's more of the small businesses taking care of everybody. And I think people started doing that because they were tired of the way they were treated in corporate America and they were done with it, And so it was send off and do your own thing or, and build your, what they say, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. That's what Milton Berle says. I say that on my show all the time. I love that saying. It's my favorite saying. But I want you to weigh in. Do you feel like this is what's happening? This is a hot topic. Everyone's starting to text about this. And I love love discussing it because it affects what we're doing all the time. I mean, do you feel like you're wrongfully treated when it comes to, reviews and disciplinary action? Is there a right or wrong way for a company to handle that? I mean, how do they handle that? Especially if it's financially based. And what if it's financially based because the workforce that they have or certain people in the workforce are not doing what they need to do to keep things moving in the right direction and profitable? But we can dive into this after the break. But thank you so much for listening. And this is the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And you are listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And I am your host, Jennifer Sheets, filling in for Matt. And he will be on, for those of you that want to hear him today, at 3 o'clock from 3 to 7, filling in from Brian Wilson. And we've been talking about people being let go. First, we started at the top of the hour, being laid off or let go via video. And I've loved everybody weighing in about how they feel about that. It's kind of, 50-50 in a way. Depends on how it is used is pretty much what I'm gathering from everyone. And then we started talking about being let go wrongfully. And, what does that look like and the reasons that people are, and is it explained to them and being told one thing and ends up being something else? So, I think we've all faced that from time to time in our careers, is how that all looks. And I appreciate you guys sharing your stories. There's quite a few of them that have come through on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, which is 615-737-9986. And this is going to become more important as we move on because of what's going on right now with job security, technology, AI taking over jobs. I know that I talk about this a lot in my show, but it kind of feeds in a little bit to this because, you're going to end up where people are going to come up with their own way to make a living that doesn't have to do with working in corporate America. And corporate America saying, I don't want to have to deal with it on the other side either. So we're going to find an algorithm or a technology to take over someone's role is pretty much. But I really do think that this is a reason why people are starting their own business more. Someone had texted and said, started my own business with family because of this. I take care of my guys and they take care of me. We keep it small. I read that before we went to the break. I was reading it again because I think that's super important, that may be the way we're going in the future. So we'd love to continue the conversation on the other side, the top of the hour. Appreciate you listening and being with me today. And you're listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Two o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 84 degrees and a sunny day in Nashville. Got some chances for showers later on. No storms, though. Those, again, staving off until tomorrow. Got a weather forecast coming up 2 minutes away. Several high-stakes meetings this week over the recent weekend attack by Iran against Israel. International leaders considering their next move. Here's M to win.
A group of 7 foreign ministers met in Italy to discuss new sanctions against Iran over its unprecedented weekend attack against Israel. Top officials called on sanctions to target the maker of drones used in the attack launched by Tehran-backed militia. This comes as senior U.S. and Israeli officials met to discuss Israel's potential retaliatory strike against Iran and Israel's plans for the southern Gaza city of Rafah. President Biden has urged Israel not to conduct a large-scale offensive in Rafah to avoid massive civilian casualties.
In Texas, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Nevada all reported 911 emergency calls were blocked for about 2 hours overnight. Some 911 systems reported problems with calls from landlines. Others said callers from cell phones couldn't get through. Services have been restored, but it's unclear what caused the outages, though the Del Rio, Texas Police Department says the issue was traced to a major cellular carrier. Some 240 million calls are placed to 911 in the U.S. each year, according to the National Emergency Number Association. That is the latest news. Weather forecast next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
And you're listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am your host, Jennifer Sheets, and Matt Murphy will be filling in today from 3 to 7 for Brian Wilson. And I'm just so happy that you're all here listening. As I host a show on the weekends called Mastering the Workforce, and I host it on Sundays. And this is my first time taking a stab at filling in and helping out during the week, so I appreciate your patience with me as we go through today. We talk about all kinds of crazy things and try to solve all the world's problems, I guess you could say. But I appreciate everybody weighing in. We've had some great conversations. First hour we talked about social media and responsibilities of them with kids and what's happening with that generation. And last hour we were talking about how it is when people are videotaping, secretly videotaping all these things when it comes to work and getting let go and putting reviews up and how that all plays into a company and deciding what you're going to do. And I've had such a great response from it. I really appreciate all of you weighing in, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's what the show is about. Show is about what you guys are thinking and what's on your minds. And that's what we want to talk about each and every day. And, speaking of that, it's been really crazy. I've noticed how many people now find themselves in a position working more than one job and side hustles and things like that. And what's crazy today is that a lot of the stuff that's in the news, and you talk about politics, and I know that this is something that Dan Mandis dives into completely, and obviously Matt Murphy does, and Brian Wilson and Chris. I mean, they Chris Hand talk about politics all the time, and for me, it is so hard to separate what trends we see that goes on in business from politics, because I feel like they just go hand in hand, and that then we all are the aftermath of that, right? Because how we live our lives and what we do is dependent on what's happening with that. And I just think that they're married together, and I think the way to navigate it is us understanding a little bit better. I'm just curious to find out, because I found out there was quite a few people that were weighing in that were remote workers. I was just also curious to find out if anybody's worried about not having a job, because this come with AI and technology. This has been one of those things that I have watched happen for many years now. Get to the point that it's scary in one way. But if you can dive into it and look at it a little bit deeper and understand it, it cannot be so scary if you know how to start navigating in your business and stuff. So when I first started talking about this subject, originally a couple years ago, it said that about 77 million jobs were going to be automated within the next 5 to 7 years. Then I watched it change last year into about 300 some million. And then Elon Musk was bringing up that it was going to be 575 million now, which is absolutely startling. And to me, I said, okay, what happens when you eliminate all of these industries and all these people that are working in them and the companies that are scaling up? Right. So you got these companies scaling up and being the best, the biggest, best, the brightest to the first to be use AI technology to make their products and services the best. So it's like a race to that. And then when they get there, there's going to be no one to buy it because they're all going to be out of work. Like it makes no sense to me that why we can't have a little bit more controlled growth and a little bit more weighing in from everybody. So I was just curious how you guys all feel about that. If you are scared of it, if you are welcoming it, how much of it do you use in your everyday life? I mean, are you constantly using it? And are you worried that it's going to take over a position you have and what you're going to do, if and when that time happens? And so this is going to be an interesting topic today. We can talk about anything you want. Make sure you text to the Members Nutrition Super text line 615-737-9986. But I have someone that's called in, Lindsay from Pleasant Valley, and love to hear what you have to say, Lindsay. Thanks, and welcome to the Matt Murphy Show.
Hi there. I just wanted to welcome you on in. There's entirely too much testosterone going on over at that station.
I appreciate that, Lindsay.
We need a girl in there sometimes.
I appreciate that so much, Lindsay. Thanks.
And I want to shout out to my friends on the F&M Bank chat line who are watching you.
Oh, great. Hey. How you doing?
Yeah, I want to know about that last caller. Why can't he just sue their butts off?
Exactly. I mean, he could. I think it's a matter of whether you want to take the time to do it or not. You know how that is sometimes, right? But it should. I mean, we have to take a stand.
It seems like he's got the case.
It does. It does. And I'm seeing more and more of that. And I'm curious, Lindsay, I mean, what kind of field are you in?
I'm just sitting on my butt in a big mint green dress, being a homebody.
I love it. I love it. And
I own my house. I've raised 5 kids. I'm done.
Oh, hey, that's what we all strive to do, right? That's how we want to be. Have you noticed this change in how people that have been let go or whatever, how they're fighting back if they feel it's been wronged? Have you noticed that?
It happened to my daughter, and she's almost 30, and she doesn't know what in the world she's doing still. And I couldn't advise her. She took it very personally.
Wow.
And it wasn't fair, and there was nothing I can say. It was either stand up and fight them or just go on and find something else. And it was something she really loved, and it wasn't fair, but she didn't have the backbone to stand up to them.
I think that happens more often than not, Lindsay, and I think because it's a long process, it's a lot to do with it, and and it's time consuming, and really at that point you're trying to just figure out a way to make the next dollar, right? So I'm sorry that happened to her, but I'm really happy for you that you're at a place where like you said, you've raised your kids, you can do your things. I think that's amazing, and thank you for calling the show, and thanks for welcoming me. I appreciate it so much.
There, Jennifer, you got this.
All right. Thanks so much, Lindsay. I truly appreciate that. So there was somebody that messaged about trade jobs being most secure. I completely agree with that. And again, Lindsay, thank you for calling in. I completely agree that what I'm seeing is that you're not going to find where there's robots jumping into every home trying to fix something, because you've so many factors. I mean, age of home, terrain, you don't know how somebody's cared for it, the replacement parts they might have put in over the years. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I think that the trades, what I have seen is that the pay is astronomical. People going into plumbing, heating, cooling, HVAC, they're making way more than people coming out with bachelor's degrees in accounting and marketing and finance and things. And unfortunately, a lot of those particular roles right now are being taken over by technology and algorithms and things like that. And so I think that if you're going to encourage the younger generation, for sure, I think one of the things that should happen is telling them to go into the trades, because I think that's something that's going to be around for a long time and is always going to be necessary, right? I think it'll always be there. And I know that someone had messaged in, Chris, I think, said, I'm glad I'm older. Hopefully I'll be out before everything is changed and over to AI. And, the self-checkout thing, let's weigh in on the self-checkout thing. You want to have a world divided? Talk about that. Because now there are people that are scamming it, right? And I sometimes think, like, I hate saying this, but it's true. I mean, as a store, I guess you get what you get with that, right? Because if you're going to eliminate and put a machine there and people are going to do what they're going to do, I guess you get what you get. But I got Maria from Murfreesboro on the line. Hey, Maria, welcome to the Matt Murphy Show.
Hey, it's so nice to hear your voice. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Maria. I appreciate that.
Listen all the time to this radio station, and I love it. So my comment, and I love the topic that you're talking about today. I was in an agency where I worked with home health.
Oh, yes.
Where we sent caregivers into clients' homes to take care of them. And I was with this company for 9.5 years. And on a Friday afternoon, after, the day was almost over, my boss calls me in. She says, would you come into the conference room? So I, happily go into the conference room. And there's the HR person sitting there, and they let me go after 9.5 years. And what I want to say about this is that they actually did me a favor. Even though I retired at that point and I went to collect Social Security at 62 and cut myself short of that part of my income, because if you retire at 62, you get less than if you retire at your full retirement age. I was able to stay home with my husband until he passed, which was huge for me.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you. We were married for 30 years.
Wow. You don't hear that much anymore.
Children. Yeah. And so, but my point is that God puts us where we're supposed to be, and everything happens for a reason. Nothing is by chance. There is no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. So if there's people out here that are hearing this that have lost their job, there's another job. There's another situation. There's something that's going to come along their way. It may not be immediate. It just might not be immediate. I didn't want to get married again for 7 years. I waited that long because I didn't think I needed another husband, and now I'm happily married again.
Oh, that's so sweet, Maria. I'm happy that you shared that. That has a nice ending to it.
Thank you.
For sure. And I think that this is a common thing. That's people go through this, and it's so difficult. And I appreciate you weighing in, Maria, and I appreciate your kind words today and being patient with me as I'm filling in today. So thank you so much,
problem.
and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. One more thing I want to say is that Tennessee is a right-to-work state, so they can let you go for no reason at all.
Yes, 100%.
And you don't have a case.
Nope, nothing you can do about it.
Unless you can prove like sexual harassment or, something huge, you don't have a case.
Yep, you're right about that.
Anyway.
Thanks,
All
Maria.
right.
Appreciate you.
Much.
Yes, appreciate you listening today. Thank you. And we're going to go to Gary in Springfield. Hi, Gary. Welcome to the Matt Murphy Show.
Thank you, and welcome to you to the Matt Murphy Show.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Gary.
You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Just on the trade issue, I have a son that's 22 years of age. He started off in the automotive industry, worked his way up. He's an assistant service manager right now. He's making going on about $9,000 a month. He started giving it at age 16. And high school graduate. His brother is in the 82nd Airborne, 2 years college. He's going to get out after his 4 years, jumping out of airplanes, doing all that, but he's going to go back to college. And they were joking around a while back, and my son with the making all that money at age 22 versus the other one at 26, he goes, let's see what that college degree has gotten for you. And then my son said back to him, he says, "Bud, I get $75 extra a month in jump pay for jumping out of airplanes," it was just pure comical.
Right?
The whole point. Trade school is the way to go, young folks. It's the way to go.
Yes. Gary, thank you for weighing in on that. 1,000% agree with you. That is the way to go. And I'm seeing it in our text lines. Everyone's lighting up the text lines. I'm so glad. I did have to laugh that Statman said no self-checkout. We did have to finish that thought for a second. Yes, I agree. But, right. I mean, I think that the trades, the skilled trades, that's the future. That's the way that it's going to go. I mean, I think so many people believe that it's actually, foolproof. I mean, AI proof, whatever. Someone messaged me and said, "Hey, Jen, trade jobs, plumbing, electrician, and construction are AI proof. Medical field as well. That's what's going to happen. The majority taking on different roles." The workforce, face it, everybody, is going to look different real quick. And I think when, it's funny because my son is graduating high school this year. And I think one of the hardest things as a parent is you have to start talking to them about career or how they're going to live and make a living when they're so much younger. So we had this conversation in my house like years and years ago. And you want them to do something that they love and they're really good at. But then, I always said I wished I would have known then what I know now about career choices and where they were going and what kind of money that you can make at them. Because right now it's very difficult to lead kids in a path. It's almost tragic how you have some of the universities out there, the degrees that they're offering, and that I can flat out tell you right now are not going to be here in 10 years. And they're taking their money and you're going to go graduate with it and you're not going to be able to do anything with it. And, I think that you have to start looking at things differently than what the stigma of how we thought, everybody's got to have a college degree. Listen up. There are so many people out there way smarter than me that don't have college degrees that make 1,000,000 times more money than I do. It's all about how you apply yourself and what you find something that you love. I always tell on my show on Sundays, I said, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I think there's a challenge for parents now just to try and lead their kids in a path where, they can do something that they love, but they can actually make money at it. And then you've got all of the politics that go along with it, because I know that's something that, they talk about on Dan's show in the morning, how the colleges are and the universities and their political beliefs and what happens. And I guess you get into the trades and you do some of that, you're going to avoid all of that. Someone just said, I'm 24 and bought my house at 20. If your degree isn't useful, don't go. Yeah, 1,000%, 1,000%. And someone else said, I work in telecommunications, and every year our market gets smaller and smaller as AI takes over the business, be it through apps or AI. This is exactly what I'm saying. I mean, I had my friend that was in nuclear engineering tell me that 50 of them got let go in one Zoom call. And that's because an algorithm is taking over what they're doing. And the challenge for me, I don't have time to kind of get into this part of it, but maybe I can around the break, is there's some things that I was able to go listen to some speakers talk about AI, just making sure I'm understanding what it is. And I think that there's just we have a veiled, I use that word a lot, but it's true. It's kind of like a blurred vision, I guess, of what it really is. And I think if we understood it better, we would be able to handle it more. I think that we're being told things the way that we're being told them for a reason. That's my conspiracy theorist in me. But anyway, I love everybody messaging in. So thankful that you are. We're going to get to all of these texts here right after the break. So you are listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Multiple high-stakes meetings this week over the recent weekend attack by Iran against Israel. And we will be taking a look at an event in Philadelphia that President Biden was at. He was joined by the Kennedys. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am filling in for Mr. Matt Murphy. This is Jennifer Sheets. And if you want to tune in to hear Matt, you will still hear him today. He's going to be on from 3 to 7, filling in for Brian Wilson. And we have been talking about something that's been very sweet to see, these text messages coming through about how much you guys are behind the trades. We've been talking about jobs that are staying or going and what you all think. I wanted to know what you think. Do you think that your job's in jeopardy? Do you think that this is something you're worried about? Is this something that you feel very well versed in? Do you know how to steer your kids into a direction and what might be there? And it's interesting to hear everybody's take on it because I think everyone feels the same about the trades. And as a matter of fact, I had one of my friends just messaged me in the break talking about that she wants to be a truck driver because her husband makes more than her. And it's funny because I love my truck drivers, my line haul drivers out there. They have a very special place in my heart. Supply chain is absolutely critical to this country. I talked about it a little bit. Dan had me on his show, Dan Mandis did a few weeks back when the barge hit the bridge, and we were talking about like what possible things that was going to affect, as far as in the supply chain goes. And I just think there's a lot of the working parts of this country's economy that rely on each other, and we all have to be aware of each one of them. We can't be, in our own little bubble about it. And so I just wanted to bring up the questions just to kind of see, what's going on. And I appreciate you guys agreeing with me. Vocational school, as someone just messaged in and said, Jennifer, she's so right. Vocational school, trade school is the way to go. They said, I've got 2 university degrees, 2 associate degrees, 3 technical diplomas. Wow. But it was only after I went to trade school that I got my happy job, many years with the same company and a stable income. So happy. I love to hear that. Now, I just feel like I am slacking in my life. You have 2 university degrees, 2 associate degrees, 3 technical diplomas. That's fantastic. You can do whatever you want to do with that. And then you don't have to worry about the AI taking over everything, right? And Todd said, don't forget us mail carriers. Yes, without a doubt. There is no question. I have so much respect for that as well, and truly, truly appreciate it. And, someone else says something. This is very, very, very true. I've been like trying to unbury this AI thing. And I always tell everybody, because my son loves computer coding. Even though he's 18, he has certifications in coding that they've taught him in high school, and then he's gone to some camps in the summer to do. And I'm learning a lot about it. And, I'm just, very curious on how this all works. And basically, what it is, obviously we all know it's code, but a human being's coding it, right? So whatever the options that it assigns to the ones and zeros is what it is. And so you have to think about this. Someone weighed in and just said, and thank you for telling me you're doing a great job. I really appreciate that. Tim Jones did. Appreciate that, Tim. Tim said that he built industrial automated equipment. And he said things that we all need to think about is who will build the robots? Who's going to program the robots? Who builds the servers for the AI? Who builds the buildings for the AI servers? The jobs only shift to something else. You'll never get rid of people jobs. Be flexible, learn a trade. It feels good not to be helpless. Absolutely. Beautiful, Tim. Thank you for weighing in on that. I agree with you. I think that there is going to be a challenge in finding the people wanting to make that switch, right? So, we all do things that we want to do. We find a career that we like and love. And so if you take someone on marketing, let's say, and you want to put them in a manufacturing plant, that may be a mismatch. And that may be where the upside down comes in. I think it'll be easier to transition people that are already in trades or maybe into something like that into a new world. But I think it's going to be harder to take those that aren't necessarily in that and get them to want to take on the new roles that will be created at that time and everything. Yeah, and it's funny because side hustles, someone just brought this up. Oh, I love this too. I want to talk about side hustles. This is super important. This is a great way in the last half hour to end the show because there's side hustles and there's really unique companies that have been started by people. And this is what we want to be helpful to everybody out there. If you find yourself in a position where I don't know if my job's going to be around or what's going on with that, it's super important to bring that up and talk about this. And, someone else just said, Jared, he said, I worked at the same place in East Tennessee for 12 and a half years. years. He got married and moved to Murfreesboro, literally went through 4 jobs in 7 years before he ended up where he is now. He said, I love my job. I'm not going to lie. It really hit me hard. I felt like a failure. If I wasn't blessed with such an amazing wife, that's very sweet of you, Jared. I don't know where I would be. I was a very successful salesperson at an electronics company. They continued to pass me over for promotions by younger people. Younger people couldn't handle the job, but I didn't let them fail. To this day, young people still use my notebook manual I made for them, and they call it Jared's Bible. They tell me every time I go in how much they miss me. I've been gone for 3 years now. They still have customers ask for me, and it's Jared in the borough. That's very, very sweet. And I appreciate very, very much you sharing the story with us. And we can see like everybody has a journey. Everyone has their walk of where they get where they are. And I think it's important, like John says, it's supply and demand. The trades are in demand now because for the last 30 years, kids were told they had to go to college. So qualified tradespeople became scarce. And then that's really what happened. Thanks, John in Lawrenceburg, for that. But we're going to take our break here at the bottom of the hour. And when we come back, we're going to dig into this a little bit deeper. So you're listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.2:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 85 degrees, a sunny, warmer day in the mid-state. May get some rain here tonight. Looks like storms will wait until tomorrow. Weather forecast on the way, 2 minutes. At an event in Philadelphia, President Biden was joined by Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s sister, Carrie Kennedy, and other Kennedys who announced their endorsement for the president's reelection. Im Nguyen has more from Washington.
President Joe Biden received a major new endorsement from several Kennedy family members, despite one of their own, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., launching his own independent bid for office. The family saying Biden has been a champion for all the rights and freedoms that their father and uncles stood for.
Nearly every single grandchild of Joe and Rose Kennedy supports Joe Biden.
Robert, the nephew of former President John F. Kennedy, has a slim shot of winning, but pundits believe his bid could draw votes away from Biden.
And here in Tennessee, the state moving closer to banning reparations for descendants of slaves. News 2 says legislation is advancing that prohibits local governments from dispersing money for the purpose of reparations. And it's not just money the bill blocks, but any benefits too. Democrats have tried to add amendments to leave reparations to local governments to decide, but have failed. And was the man who's accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students in 2022 out for a drive, run, or hike in the middle of the night? His attorney says yes. Alex Stone.
In a new court filing in which Brian Kohberger's attorneys had to tell the judge their planned alibi defense, they say they will argue that Kohberger often drove around at night and would take night hikes and runs to see the moon and the stars, and that he was not near the murder scene. That contradicts police and prosecutors who say cell phone data shows him in the area of the murder scene, and for about 2 hours at the time of the murders, his phone was turned off or out of service range, but it disappeared from the network before coming back online after the murders.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
And welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am your host, Jennifer Sheets, today filling in for Matt Murphy. He'll be joining us shortly as he will be filling in from Brian Wilson from 3 to 7 today. First of all, I want to thank everybody for putting up with me today. I've had an absolute blast being on the show. Normally I do a show on Sundays. It's an hour long. This is my first time doing 3 hours. I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I certainly appreciate you welcoming me in and letting us talk about some different topics today that I thought were really important and really good to talk about and get some dialogue going. And so I'm really, really thankful that you allowed me to do that today. We've been talking about jobs, AI, what's going to be here, what's maybe not going to be here. And we were talking about the trades and how important they are. And someone had texted in and said, bachelor degree and associate's degree types out at $42K a year and says that I drive an entertainment bus now and make 6 figures and I'm extremely happy. I mean, I think it's all what you make it. And I think that you have to go back to what I said earlier, is that if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I firmly believe that. And it is just really hard to find something like that. It's so much easier said than done. And, you really have to take a leap of faith, I really have to find something you believe in and stick your neck out there. You got to put skin in the game, essentially, is what you got to do. And it's funny because I kind of wanted to talk about something kind of lighthearted as we were getting towards the end of this 3 hours that we have, because I think it's interesting to let people know that no matter how crazy your idea is or whatever you think, if you find yourself in that transition, you're wondering, well, is AI going to take my job, or is technology, or where I'm at, that there are people that absolutely unequivocally could go out there, and then they started these companies. They're crazy and they're making tons of money. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about this. So I don't know, Belle, can you hear me okay in there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to tell you a couple of these, and I need to get your reaction, okay? Because I did this once on my show with Kevin Mumphrey, and it was hysterical when he got his reaction. And I would love for all the Matt Murphy listeners to hear these, because they're crazy. And this might make you start thinking about what you want to start. But so you ready? I want your opinion. This is a very successful business. It's called the Cuddle Party.
Yeah, I'm already against it, but go ahead.
And it says we all need a hug sometimes. Thankfully, cuddle parties exist. And they have a cuddle party website, and now they've spread across the United States, Europe, Canada, and Australia.
I think we need Dan Mendes' opinion on this one.
I think if Dan would be interested.
Cuddle parties, yes or no? Let's get some.
He needs to weigh in on that one, right? Okay. This one actually is pretty good. Okay, I can't wait to get your reaction on this one. All right, dirty, rotten flowers. It says bad breakup, good sense of humor. Does spite drive your decision making? Dirty, rotten flowers is for you. It's a business that sends bouquets of dead, rotting flowers to your not so loved ones.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend money on somebody I don't like.
So at that point, you're completely out. And let's see, there was one more I was going to see and get your reaction to today too, because this one is pretty crazy. I don't even know if I want to say it. Maybe I go to the other one because it's pretty like.
Do you have to clean it up or something?
Yes, I'd have to clean it up. How about this? Okay, hire goats. This is what. Okay, ready? This is hiring goats to mow your lawn.
Oh, that's yeah.
You all in on that one?
I think Brian Wilson actually has a goat on. Are you back there, Mac?
Yeah, I'm back here.
Does Brian have a goat that he has on his property? Doesn't he have a live goat?
I don't think so.
I thought he said something about having a live goat.
But he might steal that idea now. I do like that.
Yeah, I mean, if I could hire a goat to mow my lawn, I'm all about it.
I like the dirty, rotten flowers or whatever it was.
You did like the dirty, rotten flowers.
I like that. Yeah.
See, that's what Kevin liked. He said the same thing. He liked dirty, rotten flowers. He thought that would be good. Well, the one that I kind of had to clean up, but I hope this gives everyone listening a little light and make them laugh. It's called nudicles.
Nudicles.
Yeah, you ready for it?
Has this got something to do with nudie country suits?
Right. It says Bob Barker spoke wise words when he encouraged everyone to spay and neuter their pets. But it says, but are your pets really the same after they get snipped? And it said it's something if you're worried about, you can buy artificial ones and give them to your pet.
Yeah, I'm not wasting money on that.
Yep. And there's actually a website people can go on and do all kinds of crazy things with. So
when I've had my animals spayed or neutered, I've gone in and I've paid to have something disassembled, not reassembled. I'm not spending the extra money.
Not reassembling that, right?
Right.
Well, I appreciate you guys talking with me about that, because I just thought, we've been talking about how some of these serious topics, and it just goes to show that you can, if you find something you love to do, you can do anything. And I think that, this station, I love this station, and I love all the shows. I love Matt Murphy's show. I love Dan's show. I love Chris's show, Brian's show, everybody. And everybody kind of has their own take and their own thing. And for me today, it has been great to having an opportunity to sit in for Matt. And like I said, I know that, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm loving having an opportunity to talk about some of the topics that, I bring up on my show sometimes. And then just having people weigh in on these things. They're important. We're all just trying to do the best that we can to get through this. And right now we're talking a political year. This is going to be crazy. I've just had hit in my headlines all the stuff with Boeing right now. I actually have to take a flight next week. I'm not really looking forward to that. Just every day it's something new, something else going on, with them. And I just feel like there's so many challenges in the world. It's nice to kind of have some topics we can talk about that we can, all know affect each and every one of us, but kind of get on the same page with and see what your take is on it. And I appreciate the comments that I'm getting on text message. Thank you so much. I know that there are a few of them that, have been really, really complimentary, and some that are just, ready for Matt to get back. But what I want to say is that when we're looking at everything we talked about from from AI taking jobs to remote workforce to videotaping people when they're getting let go or laid off to our generation and what's happening with them right now regarding social media and their mental health. I think these are all really super important topics that we need to discuss. And when we jump even back into the top hour when we're talking about mental health and social media, that is something that if we don't start addressing as a society, is how we're bringing our children up into that and having them start to be free thinkers away from that, it's going to cause a huge problem in the future. And we're already seeing that. Like right now, I think they can't think for themselves, pretty much what I guess I was trying to say. And I think what's been really good for me seeing a difference of, and why I have to put myself in check with my own kids and my family is, with my son having had cancer 3 times and having a bone marrow transplant, and I kept him away from the social media. So the stuff that he was on was gaming. That was his outlet. That was his way of finding people and being able to talk and make friends and stuff that way. He has a very different perspective of how he feels about himself than my daughter, who is 14. And she just, for me, I see so much with her. She's more involved because she's on that social media platform all the time, where my son wasn't. So things roll off his back more. He just thinks differently than what she does, where she's taking in everything everybody's saying. And so, I know it's getting close to the end of the hour. I just wanted to say that, we have to think about how that looks for our kids in the future and what we're doing. And, it's just right now, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how you all feel about it. I just think that we have to step in and parent. That's one takeaway from the first hour. I think we definitely have to do that. We can't just keep kids away from everything. I think jumping into what we were talking about in the second hour is that, if you're gonna video record something, it goes both ways. I do think that it has to be both ways. You have to know if you're going to do that you need to do it for the right reasons and not to go around bashing either way, because, that can come back and hurt a lot of other people. But at the same time, if your voice needs to be heard, it needs to be heard. And we talk about how people felt being let go wrongly that shouldn't have been let go, and how that looks for them and what that means for their future and how that affects them long term. And we've also dived into this whole AI world and the traits, the skilled traits, and how those are going to be around. And I'm just, that's where, if you're going to tell somebody what's going to be around in the next 5 to 10 years and not go away, and even more, and always be there, that is definitely, I agree with everybody, the way to go. And so I wanted to just kind of wrap that up in a little pretty bow about that, because of the fact that, these are things that we're going to have to deal with every single day. And right now, I think that the consensus is that if you are going to take a job at any company, you need to be researching what the company does to see if that company in and of itself is going to be around in another 5 to 10 years. And if you don't like what you see, and according like someone that just texted me, if you don't like what you see, just go do something yourself, figure something out, put your skin in the game, do something, because you can do it. I mean, listen to me. If these kids can make millions on TikTok or start like the business like I was asking them about the dead flowers and the goats mowing the lawn, you can do anything. You can do anything you put your mind to and want to do, and there's a lot of noise going on right now that we all are having to listen to. This political spectrum that's going on right now, it's depressing. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I know this is what we are all consuming and talking about every single day, but it can be very depressing, and it's up to us to make those changes, right? So you need to be well versed in everything. You need to understand how it's impactful in your life, your kid's life, your family's life, your significant other, whoever. And you have a voice and you have abilities, and you need to do them. You absolutely need to do them. And it's funny, someone just texted us, I work in Q&A, good luck with Boeing, and said your culture of quality says everything about your business. Great auditors and a C-suite that will hear dissent is imperative. I think that's a amazing take on that. I appreciate you sending that in. Boeing is going to be something like, if I were doing a show tomorrow, that I would be tapping into that in about 2 seconds, because the whole thing in the airline industry is just literally blowing my mind. And I know that so many of us travel all the time, flying anywhere and everywhere, and it's getting, I don't know if it's more frightening or if this stuff has actually been going on, and it's just now because we're in an election year and because of all the things that come to light that now we're bringing it up, and now people are talking about it, and now people are saying something about, or if this truly is just all at once. To me, I feel like there's no coincidences in an election year, so I think that there's a lot of that going on, and I'd love to hear Matt. I mean, Matt's going to be on a 3 o'clock hour for Brian Wilson, so I'd love to hear his take on what he thinks is going on in that industry as far as aviation and where that's going. And I appreciate so much, again, everybody's comments today. And what I want to do is just challenge you all to think about what you can do in your small part of the world that can make a difference, not only and be impactful, not only in your life, but in other people's life, with, absorbing what's going on in society today and the political spectrum today, because you do have control over it. Don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think that when we all get together in the masses and we think positively and actually take action, I think that change comes. And I think that's a really great thing. So, I look forward to having my kids make a difference in this world, and I'm gonna keep treating them and challenging them and encouraging them to do that as we roll in the future. But we're gonna take a break, and then when we come back, we'll just have a few minutes, and it will be the end of the show. So appreciate you listening today, and you're listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And if you're wondering where Matt Murphy is, he's sitting across from me.
This must be a jolt to people because I tend to scream at them. And you have such a calm, soothing voice.
Do I sound like that, like NPR, right?
No, I wouldn't say that, but certainly not in Viewpoint. But hey, Jennifer, nice to see you.
Hey, nice to see you.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy that you are here. It's so wonderful to see you. And I thank you for
figured you want to do another hour or two.
Sure, I'm right on top of that, Rose.
Come on.
So you're coming on to fill in for Brian. What you thinking about talking about today?
Well, we've got a number of protests that I'm going to tie together in a nice, convenient package because I think we've kind of, the old phrase, crossing the Rubicon. I think we've kind of crossed the Rubicon in American society when we have massive amounts of people screaming and shouting death to America in various parts of the country. We've got a protest going on out in California that I'm going to tie together with the protest that's going on in Columbia University in New York City. And I'm going to tie that together to a protest that happened at the Tennessee State Capitol today. For those who don't know, I don't know if you covered it.
No, I did not.
But at the General Assembly, there was a protest really led in part by Representative Justin Jones where they were accusing members of the body of being Klan members, and that kind of devolved from there, and some people had to be removed from the gallery.
Wow.
So we're going to talk about all of those things.
All right, we're going to be tuning in. We want to hear you.
Absolutely.
Cannot wait. And I want to thank all of you for listening and allowing me in today. I appreciate it, enjoyed it. Thank you for everyone that texted, and hopefully get a chance to join you all for a little bit longer again in the future. But thanks, Matt, for having me on today. I appreciate it. Yep. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.